So I'm going to share with you a little bit of my Declaration of Understanding and my Claim of Rights. This documentation is close to 28 pages long and is being held in a public record. Now, if I ever need to call upon this documentation in a court of law, I can summon it out of the public record and into the court record. And this is an action that cannot be hidden and an action that cannot be ignored. Now, when I call this record into a court of law, it creates jurisprudence for me. It creates judicial notice. It creates an obligation upon the court to take note of what is declared in there, of the rights and freedoms for the human being. In my declaration, part of it that I'm going to share with you, you're going to see the mention of the Holy Bible, and you're going to see scripture references to slavery and to murder. And my intention is not to hurt you. If you happen to be a man of faith in the Christian faith and using the Bible to justify your faith, my intention is not to hurt you or to destroy your faith. I did understand and realize that the hierarchy or the monarchy have claimed their rights and authority through the Bible. Whether the Catholic Bible or the Protestant Bible, they claim their right to rule through the Bible, that it's been given to them through God, and the scriptures that they use to justify their right to hold us in slavery and servitude is very clear. So in order for me to express my fundamental rights and freedoms, I felt it necessary to express to those in the ruling power that I am very aware of what the Bible declares and that I do not stand for it. Now, some will say to me that we are in New Testament time and that slavery was abolished, or some will say to me that you don't understand the Bible, and they will try to justify the scriptures that deal with murdering your children and that deal with slavery. In my understanding, the New Testament does speak about slavery. I included one scripture in my claim of right, but I have many other scriptures that teach that slavery was still justified in the New Testament time. When you look back in history, when the black people were being held as slaves in slavery, the white people who were doing this, they used the Bible, they used biblical reference to justify their actions. As I said before, the monarch kingdom is set up through the Bible. So it is a necessary step to let them know that you do not believe in that moral action of slavery or servitude. Now, since this is going to be your own declaration or your own claim of rights, you're going to have to work out your own salvation. You're going to have to decide if you want to include what I'm sharing with you or not. That's your choice. I felt it necessary to express my rights. And this is the basic operation of the claim of right. So once you have it on public record, therefore you can summons it. And they have to take judicial notice, and it presents you the option after if they don't. For example, when you summons that record and it's in the court of law and they refuse, or the judge who's ruling at that case refuses to want to take recognition, that then produces a way for you to sue the state. When the case is over, whether you've won or lost because they refuse to recognize your rights, then you can sue the state. It gets into another hand's judge, and now it's not an issue of you having the right to exercise them because of that situation. Now it becomes the state has violated their obligation, and therefore they owe you a certain amount of money. So it puts them in a pretty difficult predicament. It's either when they've called you to court there and they're trying to yoke you to the person and they're trying to, I don't know, make you pay taxes or enforce a ticket that you didn't pay or whatever it may be, and you summons your declaration into the court and you make them take judicial notice, and then they refuse and you lose your case. Then it creates, like I said, a suit against them, against the state party, not against the judge personally, but against the state party for not recognizing you through that process. But if you summons your public record into the public court record or into the court record, and the judge says, I'm screwed here because if I don't take judicial notice and then I rule against him and he sues the state, then I'm going to get in trouble. So I just might as well take judicial notice now, let him exercise his rights and get him the hell out of here. That is basically what is the intent of all this. What you're looking at is a copy of my claim of rights, or my claim for recognition, my declaration that is being held by the notary, by the justice system of Quebec. On this day, the 13th of August, 2002, before me, Yvonne Smith, notary, residing and practicing in the town of Waterloo, province of Quebec, appeared John Spirit, a human being, residing at 200 Main Street, Chateauguay, Quebec, who requested the undersigned notary to deposit among his minutes a declaration of understanding and claim of rights. The appearer requires the deposit to enable the notary to issue copies of the said declaration of understanding and claim of rights. Consequently, The said Declaration of Understanding and Claim of Rights is annexed hereto after having been acknowledged as true and signed for identification by the appearer in the presence of the notary. Wherefore, of act, thus done and passed at Waterloo, Quebec, and of record in the office of the undersigned notary under number 13,001. And after due reading, the appearer has signed with and in the presence of the notary. True copy of the original hereof remaining of record in my office. My Declaration of Understanding and Claim of Rights, made this day, the 30th of August, 2002. I, John, born a free human being on the day of February, according to the documentation, registration of a live birth completed and held on record by the Canadian Minister of Health and Social Services, do declare the following, in order to establish my recognition. The Quebec Charter of Human Rights and Freedoms. Whereas every human being possesses intrinsic rights and freedoms designed to ensure his protection and development, it is a fact that Canada and the provinces and territories within Canada recognize that every human being possesses intrinsic rights and that these intrinsic human rights cannot be removed or regulated, as they belong to the human being by its very nature. Whereas it is my understanding and claim that there are several subjects and players presented within the provincial and federal laws. These subjects are classed according to the benefits and privileges that have been conferred upon them through Her Majesty's enactments. It is my understanding that I have the right not to be considered as a subject in this play, and I have the right to define myself and not be designated by others without my consent. There is a distinction between different subjects or actors in operation within the law. The distinction is not only in wording, but in the rights, duties, and obligations that attach to each subject. Whereas, it is my understanding and claim that in Quebec Civil Code, Article 1, it is stated that every human being possesses a juridical personality. The same expression is found in the Quebec Charter of Human Rights and Freedoms, Article 1. It is stated, every human being has a right to life and to personal security, inviolability and freedom. He, the human being, also possesses juridical personality. Whereas, it is my understanding and claim that the human being and the juridical personality are not one and the same. There is a distinction being expressed between the human and what the human possesses, the juridical personality. A juridical personality is not one and the same when compared to a living human being. Black laws, the word possesses, the right under which one may, but no obligation, exercise control over something to the exclusion of all others. The detention or use of a physical thing with the intent to hold it as one's own. In black laws, when you look at juridical personality, it states it is an artificial person. Juridical person, see artificial person. Juristic person, see artificial person. Legal person, see artificial person. And moral person, see artificial person. So all these designations are speaking about one and the same thing, an artificial person. Now, artificial person, an entity such as a corporation, created by law and given certain legal rights and duties of a human being. A being, real or imaginary, who, for the purpose of legal reasoning, is treated more or less as a human being. An entity is a person for the purpose of due process and equal protection clauses, but is not a citizen for the purpose of the privileges and immunity clauses. Whereas, it is my understanding and claim that the same operation of law is expressed in international law. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 6, and the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Article 16. It states that everyone has the right to recognition everywhere as a person before the law. Whereas it is my understanding and claim that everyone, a human being, can take recognition as a person before the law. This is an ability that a human being possesses. However, there is no obligation for the human being to enter into said recognition. Whereas it is my understanding and claim in Canada, the juridical personality is not free and does not possess the same fundamental rights and freedoms as a human being does. Whereas it is my understanding and claim that the Declaration on the Right and Responsibility of Individuals, Groups, and Organs of Society to promote and protect universally recognized human rights and fundamental freedoms states in Article 1 that I have the right individually and in association with others to promote and to strive for the protection and realization of human rights and fundamental freedoms at the national and international levels. Whereas it is my understanding and claim the Canadian citizen is a subject of Her Majesty and according to law has pledged allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. Canadian Citizenship Act, Oath or Affirmation of Citizenship. I swear or affirm that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, Queen of Canada, her heirs and successors, and that I will faithfully observe the laws of Canada and fulfill my duties as a Canadian citizen. Following terms were taken from Black Law's Dictionary. A class is a group of people, things, qualities, or activities that have common characteristics or attributes. A subject is one who owes allegiance to a sovereign and is governed by that sovereign's laws, such as the monarchy's subjects. A citizen is a person who, by either birth or naturalization, is a member of a political community, owing allegiance to the community and being entitled to enjoy all its civil rights and protections. Whereas it is my understanding and claim when a human being takes recognition as a Canadian citizen, he or she has been stripped of certain fundamental rights and freedoms that are available to the human being. Whereas it is my understanding and claim that a Canadian citizen is not sovereign or equal, but is controlled by a sovereign through the monarch, her heirs and successors. Whereas it is my understanding and claim that a Canadian citizen, a juridical personality, has been given certain privileges and benefits which it must qualify for. Financial Administration Act, Charges for Rights and Privileges. The Governor, in Council, may, on the recommendation of the Treasury Board, by regulation, prescribe the fees or charges to be paid for a right or privilege conferred by or on behalf of Her Majesty in right of Canada, by means of a license, permit, or other authorization, by the persons or classes of persons on whom the right or privilege is conferred, or authorize the appropriate minister to prescribe, by order, those fees or charges subject to such terms and conditions as may be specified by the Governor and Council. Whereas, now that I am aware that a person who is a Canadian citizen is a subject, a servant of Her Majesty, someone who has pledged allegiance to her and to her political parties here in Canada, I reserve my right not to operate under this designation, and claim that such right is afforded to me through domestic and international laws. Whereas it is my understanding and claim that the Declaration on the Right and Responsibility of Individuals, Groups, and Organs of Society to promote and protect universally recognized human rights and fundamental freedoms states in Article 3 that domestic law, consistent with the Charter of the United Nations and other international obligations of the state in the field of human rights and fundamental freedoms, is the juridical framework within which human rights and fundamental freedoms should be implemented and enjoyed, and within which all activities referred to in the present declaration for the promotion, protection, and effective realization of those rights and freedoms should be conducted. Whereas it is my understanding and claim that the supreme law in Canada is the Canadian Constitution Act of 1982, as declared in Section 52. The Constitution of Canada is the supreme law of Canada, And any law that is inconsistent with the provisions of the Constitution is, to the extent of the inconsistency, of no force or effect. Whereas it is my understanding and claim that according to the Constitution Act of Canada, 1982, Canada is founded upon principles that recognize the supremacy of God and the rule of law. Whereas it is my understanding and claim that this God, that this being spoken about is the one who is declared in the Holy Bible the Christian God. The monarch is a professing Christian Commonwealth family. Her Majesty has been given the title Defender of the Faith. Her Majesty claimed right to rule as sovereign has been afforded to her through the religious leaders of the past and present. Whereas it is my understanding and claim that the God of the Bible, the Christian God, is a fiction invented by man and carried on through the religious rite of this world. There is no verifiable scientific evidence that would support the conclusion that the Bible is God's Word. Her Majesty and the Pope both claim their authority from the Bible. As such, their claims are void and invalid. Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 1 and 2. These be the words which Moses spake unto all Israel on this side of Jordan in the wilderness, in the plain over against the Red Sea. Moses spake unto the children of Israel, according unto all that the Lord had given him in the commandment unto them. Exodus chapter 21. Now these are the judgments which thou shalt set before them. If thou buy a Hebrew servant, 6 years he shall serve, and in the 7th he shall go out free, for nothing. If he came in by himself, he shall go out by himself. And if he were married, then his wife shall go out with him. If his master have given him a wife, and he have borne him sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be her master's, and he shall go out by himself. And if the servant shall plainly say, I love my master, my wife, and my children, I will not go out free, then his master shall bring him unto the judges, and he shall also bring him to the door, or unto the doorpost, and his master shall bore his ear through with an awl, and he shall serve him forever. Leviticus 25, verses 44-46. Both thy bondmen, slave, and thy bondmaids, which thou shalt have, shall be of the heathen that are round about you. Of them shall you buy bondmen and bondmaids. Moreover, of the children of the strangers that do sojourn among you, of them shall ye buy, and of their families that are with you, which they begat in your land. And they shall be your possessions, and ye shall take them as an inheritance for your children after you, to inherit them for a possession. They shall be your bondmen, your slave, forever. Deuteronomy chapter 21, verses 18-21. If a man have a stubborn and rebellious son, which will not obey the voice of his father, or the voice of his mother, and that, when they have chastened him, will not hearken unto them, then shall his father and his mother lay hold on him, and bring him out unto the elders of his city, and unto the gate of his place. And they shall say unto the elders of his city, This our son is stubborn and rebellious. He will not obey our voice. He is a glutton and a drunkard. And all the men of his city shall stone him with stones, that he die. So shalt thou put evil away from among you, and all Israel shall hear and fear. Deuteronomy chapter 13, verses 6-9. If thy brother, the son of thy mother, or thy son, or thy daughter, or the wife of thy bosom, or thy friend, which is as thine own soul, entice thee secretly, saying, Let us go and serve other gods, which thou hast not known, thou nor thy fathers, namely, of the gods of the people which are round about you, nigh unto thee, and far off from thee, from the one end of the earth even unto the other end of the earth. Thou shalt not consent unto him, nor hearken unto him, neither shall thine eye pity him, neither shalt thou spare, neither shalt thou conceal him, but thou shalt surely kill him. Thine hand shall be first upon him to put him to death, and afterwards the hand of all the people. Judges chapter 12. Now Jephthah, the Gileadite, was a mighty man of valor, and he was the son of an harlot. And Gilead begat Jephthah. And Gilead's wife bare him sons, and his wife's sons grew up, and they thrust out Jephthah, and said unto him, Thou shalt not inherit in our father's house, for thou art the son of a strange woman. Then Jephthah fled from his brethren, and dwelt in the land of Tob. And there were gathered many men in Jephthah, and went out with him. And it came to pass in the process of time that the children of Ammon made war against Israel. And it was so, that when the children of Ammon made war against Israel, the elders of Gilead went to fetch Jephthah out of the land of Tob. And they said unto Jephthah, Come, be our captain, that we may fight with the children of Ammon. And Jephthah vowed a vow unto the Lord, and said, If thou shalt without fail deliver the children of Ammon into my hands, then it shall be, that whosoever cometh forth of the doors of my house to meet me, when I return in peace from the children of Ammon, shall surely be the Lord's, and I will offer it up for a burnt offering. So Jephthah passed over unto the children of Ammon to fight against them, and the Lord delivered them unto his hands. And Jephthah came to Mithite unto his house, and, behold, his daughter came out to meet him, with timbrels and with dances. And she was his only child. Beside her he had neither son nor daughter. And it came to pass, when he saw her, that he rent his clothes, and said, Alas, my daughter, thou hast brought me very low, and thou art one of them that troubled me. For I have opened my mouth unto the Lord, and I cannot go back. And she said unto him, My father, if thou hast opened thy mouth unto the Lord, do to me according to that which has proceeded out of thy mouth. For as much as the Lord has taken vengeance for thee on thine enemies, even the children of Ammon. And she said unto her father, Let this thing be done for me. Let me alone 2 months, that I may go up and down upon the mountains, and bewail my virginity, I and my fellows. And he said, Go. And he sent her away for 2 months. And she went with her companions, and bewailed her virginity upon the mountains. And it came to pass at the end of 2 months that she returned unto her father, who did with her according to his vow, which he had vowed. And she knew no man, and it was a custom in Israel. Titus chapter 2, verse 9. Exhort servants to be obedient unto their own masters, and to please them well in all things, not answering again. Whereas it is my understanding and claim that the moral code and expression of the God and the faith that Her Majesty defends is a morally bankrupt character, who is a fiction invented by men. I do not stand or approve of slavery, nor do I accept human sacrifice, nor do I accept to be governed by anyone or any being claiming association with the Christian faith or any faith. Whereas it is my understanding and claim that according to the Article 8 of the ICCPR, no one shall be held in slavery. Slavery and the slave trade in all their forms shall be prohibited. No one shall be held in servitude. Whereas it is my understanding and claim that according to Article 26 of the Constitution Act of Canada, 1982, Article 26 states that the guarantee in this Charter of certain rights and freedoms shall not be construed as denying the existence of any other rights or freedoms that exist in Canada. Whereas it is my understanding and claim that in the Canadian Bill of Rights, an Act for the Recognition and Protection of Human Rights and Fundamental Freedoms, Article 5 states, Nothing in Part 1 shall be construed to abrogate or abridge any human right or fundamental freedom not enumerated therein, that may have existed in Canada at the commencement of this Act. Whereas it is my understanding and claim that the Constitution Act of Canada, 1982, applies to the Government of Canada and all the provinces and territories within Canada, 1982, as indicated in Article 32. Whereas it is my understanding and claim that the province of Quebec also recognizes these rights as indicated in the Quebec Charter of Human Rights and Freedoms, Article 50. The Charter shall not be so interpreted as to suppress or limit the enjoyment or exercise of any human right or freedom not enumerated herein. Whereas it is my understanding and claim that the Quebec Charter of Human Rights and Freedoms binds the state, as indicated in Article 54, and whereas it is my understanding and claim that the Civil Code of Quebec states that it is in harmony with the Charter of Human Rights and Freedoms, and the Civil Code compromises a body of rules which, in all matters within the letter, spirit, or object of its provisions, lays down the jus commun, or common law, expressively or by implication. Whereas it is my understanding that Canada is a common law jurisdiction, and whereas it is my understanding and claim that a statute is defined as a legislative rule of a society which has been given force of law through royal assent. This law applies upon classes of persons who are subjects of Her Majesty. Whereas it is my understanding and claim that by birth I am owner of my patrimony. As stated in the Quebec Civil Code, Article 2, every person has a patrimony. The patrimony may be divided or appropriated to a purpose, but only to the extent provided by law and evidenced by the document titled Act of Birth. Whereas it is my understanding and claim that Article 50 of the Quebec Civil Code states every person has a name which is assigned to him at birth, and is stated in his Act of Birth. Whereas it is my understanding and claim that this is when the juridical person is created, through the assignment of the name. Thereby the trust relationship is created between the assigner and assignee. Whereas it is my understanding that the Director and de l'État civil has been until this day the registered holder of my patrimony security. Whereas I understand that upon demand I will be provided with this or these certificates with all rights as stockholder and all value contained within, as required by the Criminal Code Section 337. Whereas it is my understanding and claim international law, the ICESCR and the ICCPR state that recognizing that in accordance with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the ideal of free human beings enjoying civil and political freedom and freedom from fear and want can only be achieved if conditions are created whereby everyone may enjoy his civil and political rights as well as his economic, social, and cultural rights. Whereas it is my understanding and claim that Article 1.2 of the ICCPR states that all peoples may, for their own ends, freely dispose of their natural wealth and resources without prejudice to any obligations arising out of international economic cooperation based upon principle of mutual benefit and international law. In no case may people be deprived of its own means of subsistence. Whereas it is my understanding and claim that Article 2.1 of the ICCPR states that each state party to the present covenant undertake to respect and to ensure to all individuals within its territory and subject to its jurisdiction the rights recognized in the present covenant without distinction of any kind. Whereas it is my understanding and claim that Article 2.2 of the ICCPR states that where not already provided for by existing legislative or other measures, each state party to the present covenant undertakes to take the necessary steps in accordance with its constitutional process and with the provisions of the present covenant to adopt such laws or other measures as may be necessary to give effect to the rights recognized in the present covenant. I claim the right to have the remedy produced on my behalf through whatever measures are available, whether through legislation, federal court, or through personal communication with the ministers. Whereas it is my understanding and claim that the ICESCR Article 11 states that the state parties to the present covenant recognize the right of everyone to an adequate standard of living for himself and his family, including adequate food, clothing, and housing, and to the continuous improvement of living conditions. The state parties will take appropriate steps to ensure the realization of this right, recognizing to this effect the essential importance of international cooperation based on free consent. Whereas it is my understanding and claim that the social systems of Canada are inadequate and do not meet the fundamental rights guaranteed as indicated in point 58 of this declaration. Furthermore, I claim the courts in Canada are de facto and are in fact in the profitable business of conducting, witnessing, and facilitating the transactions of security interests, and I further claim that they require the consent of all parties prior to providing any such services. Whereas it is my understanding and claim that according to the Quebec Charter of Human Rights and Freedoms, Article 1, every human being has a right to life and to personal security, inviolability, and freedom. Whereas it is my understanding and claim that Article 2.1 of the ICCPR and Article 12 of the UDHR states no one shall be subjected to arbitrary or unlawful interference with his privacy, family, or home, or correspondence, nor to unlawful attacks on his honor and reputation. Everyone has the right to protection of law against such interference or attacks. Whereas it is my understanding and claim that Article 19 of the ICCPR, everyone shall have the right to hold opinions without interference. Everyone shall have the right to freedom of expression. This right shall include freedom to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas of all kinds, regardless of frontiers, either orally, in writing, or in print, in the form of art or through any other media of his choice. Whereas, it is my understanding and claim that in the exercise of human rights and fundamental freedoms, including the promotion and protection of human rights, as referred to in the present declaration, meaning my declaration, everyone has the right individually and in association with others to benefit from an effective remedy and to be protected in the event of the violation of those rights. And I'm going to end it there.